Nancy, could you tell us about when you did investigate the prison in Moundsville?
That was a pretty interesting trip over there. We went over and just walking around this big, huge, empty building that the director I was working with had been told was like heavily haunted, and he'd been doing research and he's got training, so he knows how to do the energy stuff and all that, but he didn't tell me what he'd found. So he just walked me through it, and there were whole sections of the prison where I felt absolutely nothing, and it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of boring. And then we got into this one section, and all of a sudden I'm walking along this tier, and there's a man standing in front of me who had to be 6'5" and very mean, angry man. And he was like, "You don't walk on my tier, lady." And it wasn't polite. It was, I felt like he wanted to pick me up and throw me. And we're like up a couple of floors, throw me right over the railing. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. So I backed up. Well, the way it had worked out, the camera crew had ended up, because sometimes when I'm ranging things, I just take off. And the camera crew sometimes have a little trouble keeping up with me. And I had taken off, so I was like ahead of them. So when I backed up, I ran right into the camera guy, and Dave said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Back up fast." And, we're backing up this narrow tier, and I said, "There's a very nasty man up there." And as I backed up, he just kept right coming after us. And then we reached a certain point in the tier, and he stopped. I guess that was, in his view, his territory. And then I asked him what he was in there for, and he looks at me like I'm from outer Jabip and says, "Lady, I kill people, and I enjoy it." And I'm like, oh, this is not nice. And then he just kept talking about his territory, and and I asked him, I said, "Have you ever noticed a lot of light around you?" "No." "Have you ever felt a pull to go away from this tier?" "Oh yeah, I feel that all the time. Nobody's going to dislodge me from my tier." So I try to explain to him, and I mean, even though ghosts are supposedly not physical, they can get very physical. And you have to kind of be careful how you deal with them. So I didn't want to say, "You know what, you're dead, you don't really own this tier anymore." I figured that was a bad approach. So I just kind of tried to get through to him that he was no longer living, so that he was free and he didn't have to stay stuck, because there was no other ghost around. He was by himself defending his turf, and he was having none of it. I was like, okay, we're going to leave your tier alone and we're going somewhere else, because his energy, it messed up. It got me upset, and when I get really upset, batteries go dead really fast. So all the batteries went, so we had to go take a lunch break and buy more batteries. It was a difficult thing, but we went into this one section of the prison, and I said, I see every single square inch of floor and beds covered with very ill men. I mean, hundreds of people. And the doctors were wearing long, like really longer lab coats. So the style of glasses that I saw on people made me think it was a long time ago, and everybody that was working with the sick people had masks on. So they had some kind of an epidemic in that prison, which had not been mentioned in anything anyone had said to me. So in fact, when they asked me to go to Moundsville, they didn't tell me why. So I was out there. And I was more interested in the Indian mounds than I wanted to go explore the Indian mound, which is right across the street from the prison. I was like, let's go look at that, but we didn't have permission to do that. But it was a very interesting experience, and then we ran that later the director did confirm that there was a very severe epidemic at about the time that I placed it, and that a lot of prisoners had died and a lot of townspeople died. I don't know whether it was diphtheria or something like that. It was a very serious illness that they had no meds for at that time. And then we went to another section of the prison, and I'm talking to this guy, and he's like, Mr. Dapper, even though he's in a prison uniform, you could still see in the way, very meticulous man, and he was talking about how he had been framed, and he really wasn't responsible, the mafia had done this, that, and the other, and from what I gathered from him, he was an accountant for the mafia. So it's like, don't tell me you didn't know, buddy, that you were working for the mafia. You're washing all this money for them. But his tale was that he had been framed and he really didn't do, you know, he didn't belong in prison. And so I listened to a very long tale of innocence from someone long dead. But it was interesting because all of them were very absorbed in, and this is often true, when you have a haunting, the ghosts are very absorbed in what was happening in their life when they died, and they haven't let go of it. And they're there, most of the people they know have gone long ago, and they're just still hanging on to whatever they felt was important to them that still isn't taken care of. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad to me, as a person with spiritual beliefs, that, you know, the beauty of the soul continues, that they're stuck like that. They can't grow, they can't progress until they finally let go, which who knows how many centuries that'll take. Mm-hmm. I think that red-headed guy will be on that tier forever. I mean, the tier will be gone. He'll still be on that land, Tiffany.